Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today we'll be discussing how the ISO plans to implement the Executive Appeals Committee decision on PRR 1280 Local Regulatory Authority Resource Adequacy Adjustments. My name is Isabella Nicosia, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating the web conference today. I'm also joined on the line by David Zlotlow, Senior Counsel, and Abdul Muhammad Ali, Operations Engineering Services. Then on the line is also John Gooden from Infrastructure and Regulatory Policy, Jordan Pinev, Senior Counsel, Nicole Hines from Customer Readiness, and Mark Richardson from Customer Service. The Frequently Asked Questions document that we'll be going through today is available on the BPM Change Management webpage on the California ISO website. Today's call is being recorded, and the recording is for informational and convenience purposes only. Any related transcriptions should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. We will be taking questions throughout the call today, and you can enter the question queue at any time by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. I'd just like to remind everyone to please introduce themselves before asking your question. So with that, I will hand it over to David, and we'll get started on the Frequently Asked Questions document.
Okay, hi. Good morning. So let me just start by kind of recapping where we are, why we're talking about this, and then we'll get into some of the topics covered in the document. So as a reminder, in August of 2020, the ISO published PRR 1280, which proposed amendments to the Reliability Requirements BPM. The amendments were to address the practice of local regulatory authorities, LRAs, providing RA credits to the ISO for their jurisdictional LSEs that in effect reduce what the LSEs would then have to show on their RA showings to the ISO to sort of meet their RA requirements. So the PRR created what we've referred to as the net zero credits rule. In that rule, the ISO would only process LRA credits if the credits netted to zero. That's what was proposed and put through that PRR. Several stakeholders appealed the BPM. It went through the BPM appeal process. We had a BPM appeal hearing. And then on December 9th, the Executive Appeals Committee issued its decision on the appeals. The substance of that decision was to hold the PRR 1280 amendments in abeyance until the committee renders a future decision on the appeals on or after August 1st, 2021. So in response to that decision, the ISO received stakeholder questions about practically what does that mean? How are we on the staff side? How are we going to implement that decision? What does that practically mean? Because, the RA process will continue to chug along. Monthly showings still is going to be going on before August 1st. So what is that really meaning in terms of the implementation? So we kind of took in some of that feedback. We posted the Frequently Asked Questions document about a week ago to address some of the sort of high-level topics we saw coming in, and hopefully you all have been able to look at that document, review it. So in any case, today's call is to give stakeholders a chance to ask clarifying questions about what we put out in that document, and also to potentially ask additional questions that were not addressed in that posted material. And then so if you're asking a new question today, we might not be able to, answer that today, but we'll give it a try and see what we can offer on the call today, and then we might need to follow up, provide additional information or what have you. So to start with this call, with that introduction done, I'm going to briefly summarize the content of what we posted and sort of add in a few pieces of additional context or clarification, just going through the document really quickly. And at that point, we'll open it up and see what questions we have and try to address those as well as we can. Okay, so the first question, I think there was sort of a little bit of confusion on what the August 1, 2021 date actually meant. So just to be clear, what that means is nothing will go into effect until there's a further decision from the appeal committee. The earliest that decision could happen is August 1st. But importantly, nothing automatically happens on August 1st. So it's not the case that, you know, PRR 1280 will sort of spring back into effect automatically on August 1st. That's not what's happening. The intent is to have an additional public committee hearing at some point as soon as possible after August 1st to consider further actions. But so importantly, nothing automatically is meant to happen on August 1st. That's just the earliest date anything could happen, and that will there will be an additional hearing scheduled as soon as possible. After that date, then the committee will take further action at that point, and we'll all just see what happens then. So second question, how will the ISO communicate out further decisions about what happens? So there will be market notices where we'll let stakeholders know. We'll communicate out, like I said, through market notices, try to do other, hopefully it's there. We'll perform other outreach as needed leading up to the August 1st timeframe. So, you know, none of this should come as a surprise to stakeholders in terms of what happens next after August 1st. Okay. Third question we posted, what happens with the BPM language between now and August 1st, 2021? So we went ahead and put out a new PRR, which is PRR 1316. So it's noting, for clarity, noting that the PRR 1280 language is being held in abeyance, basically the sort of paragraph of the reliability requirements BPM that covered what we've called the net zero credits rule, sort of shaded, noting that it's not being implemented right now. Between the time we did PRR 1280 and now, there were other unrelated edits to the reliability requirements BPM, so it wasn't as straightforward as just reverting the BPM back to what it said before August 2020. That probably would have been an even more straightforward way of dealing with this, but that wasn't really possible. So we, but added a new emergency PRR to just sort of note, hey, that language that was the subject of this controversy, it's not being enforced right now. And so that's how we're kind of technically in terms of the BPM, administration, how we're handling it. Okay, so then the next question or topic, while this abeyance period is holding, what will the ISO do about notices to local regulatory authorities and load-serving entities if RA plans on a monthly basis, if that plan does not happen to demonstrate sufficient RA capacity to meet all applicable RA requirements, what will we do? And so the point here is the tariff requires the ISO to notify LSCs and LRAs when an RA plan has not demonstrated sufficient RA capacity. So just for further clarity, those notifications today happen through CIRA, which is the customer interface for resource adequacy. That's basically the computer system we use to administer the RA program. So LSCs get an automated message in the interface when there's a failure to demonstrate sufficient RA capacity. And then on the LRA side, the designated contact for each LRA will get an email notifying them that there's an issue with one of their jurisdictional LSCs, log into CIRA to get the details. So that's how we sort of do the notifications. It's not, just in case there's sort of confusion about it, it's not like there's someone writes a letter, mails it off to, the CEO of the utility or anything like that. It's an automated process through CIRA, and that's what happens, and it will continue to happen. And then the question is, will those notifications be generated with or without the credits? And to clarify here, that whole process will happen without considering the credits. So those notifications will continue on without considering the credits. I think important to note, this was one of the sort of tariff compliance elements of this whole topic that we felt all along. We needed to pursue that, no matter what, really. And so that's part of our implementation. We will be generating those notifications without credits. And then the next topic, what about planned outage substitution, what we call POSO, P-O-S-O. How will we assign the planned outage substitution obligations during this abeyance period? And what that really is getting at is, you know, if a RA unit wants to take a planned outage, the planned outage substitution obligation is meant to look at, hey, is the ISO going to be okay in terms of its RA position if that RA unit were to take that proposed maintenance outage? Yes or no? If that outage would cause the ISO to have concerns about its available RA capacity during the time of the outage, then it's assigned what's called the POSO obligation. We say, yeah, okay, but you need to provide a substitute capacity to fill the gap that will be created when you take that maintenance outage. So the question is, will the ISO assign those substitution obligations during this time with or without considering the credits as part of the RA margin? And what we said in the document is that we will consider that margin with the credits. We don't view the tariff as precluding that approach, and further, we think being able to do that gives more full of an effect to the committee decision. And so we think that's something we can do is roll the consideration of the credits into the POSO analysis. Okay, then next sort of big question, as a technical issue, how are we going to implement the committee's decision? And that sort of is getting at, you know, in CERA, you know, how are the credits going to be reflected? How is that all going to work? And so what we've requested is that, you know, if LRAs wish to provide, you know, new credits, or if they wish to essentially overwrite whatever credits they had earlier provided when the, you know, when we were enforcing the net zero credits rule, and, you know, they say, well, if that rule hadn't been enforced, we would have provided a completely separate set of credits. You know, that's fine. What we're asking is you go through the city system, the customer inquiry dispute and information system, and you can provide new credits or overwrite what was in there before, and then the ISO will load them to CERA, the RA system, as soon as possible after T-minus 42 and no later than T-minus 35. And so I think that timing probably requires some explanation about why we're doing it that way. RA plans are due at T-minus 45. So again, that's 45 days in advance of the start of the RA month. So, for example, for, you know, the March 1st, for the March RA month, plans were due January 15th or roughly around there, 16th, 17th, 45 days before the start of that RA month. So why are we saying we'll load them but only after T-minus 42? So, you know, I talked earlier about the notices of insufficient RA. You know, we feel like we have to do that without considering credits. CERA is configured to, as I said, automatically send out those notifications. We looked into it. It was just not feasible to sort of do those notifications on a manual process to sort of, you know, do that outreach without using the automated configuration of CERA. It just was not feasible. There was too many permutations to kind of manage. So we needed to rely on CERA to do that. So when the notices are generated, you know, we can't have the credits in the system. Once, and so those happen between T-minus 45 and T-minus 42. By T-minus 42, all of that will have happened. Once that milestone has passed, then we can go in, load the credits into CERA so LSEs will be able to see what's there. And we said between T-minus 42 and no later than T-minus 40, T-minus 35, that's about a 7-day window. That's just to give us a little bit of sort of flexibility. We didn't want to commit to doing it exactly on T-minus 42, T-minus 41, but the intent is to get them in, as soon as possible. And just we said that just to give a little bit of wiggle room on our end, considering this is a manual process. But the point of saying T-minus 35 is we have the cure period that ends at T-minus 30. So between T-minus 45 and T-minus 30, there's the opportunity to revise RA plans and provide additional capacity if, the LSE was initially short, you can provide additional capacity. And the point was, we will get that in by T-minus 35. So at a minimum, there will be approximately 5 days there to still provide additional capacity, and LSEs can see what they are facing going into the end of the cure period. And then another part of this is also, like I said, with planned outage substitution, as with the notifications to LSEs and LRAs for deficiencies, the POSO process is configured in CIRA. That is completely unfeasible to administer on a manual basis. We need the fully automated functionality of CIRA to be used. As we said, we will be able to factor in the credits into that. So then it was also important to have the credits in CIRA when POSO starts running, which I believe is at T-minus 25. So having that in before T-minus 25 is also important. So those two factors sort of explain why we're not going to have it in right at T-minus 45, but we'll get it in shortly after. So then, let's see, I think there was a couple more of the topics to address, and then we'll open up for questions. Last two, for the 2021 RA processes that have already taken place, what is the ISO going to do? I kind of got into that a little bit before. But yeah, LRAs may use City to resubmit RA credits for any of the 2021 RA processes that have already occurred. So for example, the annual showings, January, February, even the March RA processes that have already begun. If an LRA wishes to submit new credits, overwrite credits that are already in the system, that's fine. You can submit those through City, and they will be sort of stored. So for the March RA processes, I think there would be a practical impact from whether they're submitted or not. I think for like the January, February RA month, there probably wouldn't be, I don't think, a practical impact from our end in terms of whether the credits are, loaded to CIRA or not. And I think the intent would be not to load them, but just to have them, have them stored in case that's of importance to LRA. But, certainly if the LRA believes it's important to them to have the ISO receive those credits, fine, please go ahead, feel free to do that. Final topic, how does the committee's decision impact the slow demand response initiative? So part of the background for those who haven't been following this all the way through, part of the background of PRR 1280 is that it grew out of the slow demand response initiative. It was sort of a process of operationalizing slow demand response resources in local capacity areas, all sort of background there. But I think there was some question about whether we would seek to carve out some kind of separate treatment for those specific type of resources and how those have been credited in the past in terms of our implementation of the committee's decision. The answer is no, we're not going to try to carve that out or treat them in any separate way. Those would be viewed as just any other credits that would be covered by the decision and would be addressed in the same way as everything else that we've talked about so far. Okay, so that was a really sort of a quick run through the topics that were posted with a little bit of extra information explanation. I think with that, we can sort of open it up for questions and take it from there.
As a reminder, you can enter the question queue by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. And Carice, will you let us know if anybody enters the queue?
We do have someone that has entered the queue. Caller, your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Chun-Yi Lo from PG&E. So from implementation standpoint, system implementation standpoint, do you say that there will be a few system changes in CIRA?
This is Abdul.
Yeah, go ahead, Abdul.
Go ahead, David. Okay. So yeah, no system changes. The only thing we changed is we used to allow the LRAs to upload the credits directly into CIRA. Now that access is put on hold, then the LRAs would need to send us the credit through Citi. So we ensure that they are uploaded, as David said, in that specific time frame between T-minus 42 and T-minus 35. That's why we did that. But that's the only change that we did for this.
I see. Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
There are no further questions on the queue at this time. We do have a question now.
Oh, okay. Great.
Caller, your line is unmuted.
Hi, good morning. This is Efren with the City of Vernon. I just want to be, I guess, understand or be clear. There's a little bit of confusion. As I understand, you guys, or I'm sorry, the ISO is sending out these notifications to the LRAs, notifying them that they're deficient, even though they are not deficient because the credits basically covers that deficiency. Is that correct?
Well, I guess I'll quibble with sort of the exact terms, but just if we're sort of just at the sort of practical level, yeah, that's right. I mean, I think, as I said, and as we sort of scoped out during the whole appeal process and even before then, you know, I think that there's sort of the technical questions about under the tariff whether the credits meet the definition of what is RA capacity, and we feel like those notifications, you know, have to happen without considering the credits, but that we, and importantly, you know, that yes, the notifications will go out without considering the credits, but then we will load them afterwards, and that we would not sort of, for purposes of like, you know, backstop procurement and all those, the credits would be viewed as part of what's available in terms of deciding whether additional steps need to be taken.
Okay, but wasn't that in a sense, the reason why this thing was sent to review, to kind of stop that process? Because from our point of view, our LRAs are being notified that we are deficient, when technically in our opinion, we are not. You know, based on what they've approved as counting towards capacity. So this becomes a public record, and it shows, you know, for instance, City of Vernon as being deficient before that those credits are applied. So there's this written record out there in the public showing Vernon as deficient when they really are not. We're really, in our opinion, not deficient. And I thought that was the whole intent of putting a hold on this or a stay on this, so that we can iron this out and work together so that we can avoid these things. For one, the CPM, but for us, for Vernon's point of view, these notifications are important to us too. We don't want to be out there as shown as deficient when we are not.
Right. Well, I guess two things I'll add on that is, you know, first of all, you know, just to be clear, there's no, you know, from the ISO side, there's no, you know, consequence if there's shown as an insufficiency at that initial notification stage. So there's no, you know, from the ISO side, there's no consequence to either the LSC, you know, or the LRA or anyone else from that. And then second, I think, you know, it's like I was getting at before, sort of how the notification happens. It's, you know, it's an email to the LRA saying, log in, you need to check some details. And then so the details are when someone logs into CIRA and takes a look. So, and again, that's only that there's an initial issue at the, you know, T-minus 45 or shortly thereafter process. So the point of the notifications isn't even necessary to say that, you know, in this case, the City of Vernon utility or whoever else, it's not saying that they did anything bad. It's just there's an issue to look into. You know, that's how we sort of see those notifications. So it's not meant to say, pass judgment or say anyone messed up. It's just there's an issue. We have a cure period. Look into it. That's really all from our perspective that notification is meant to reflect.
Understood, but take it on from our perspective. From our perspective, we're a public entity where people can come out and request documentation. So, there's a lot of, with the report that came out about what happened in the summer, this last summer, about being short and people, problems with the RA, when people start looking into these issues and they start saying, well, Vernon, we're showing records of Vernon being deficient 3 out of or 5 out of the 6 months in the beginning of the year. So in the sense, I understand in the ISO's perspective, we've done nothing wrong, but when you have issues or things being reported that we're short on RA, there's not enough capacity, people start digging into it, then it looks like Vernon is doing something wrong to the public eye. And we want to avoid that because, like I said, in our eyes, and as the way you explain it, we're not doing anything wrong. Why can't we hold off on these notifications till after these credits are submitted? I don't understand why, if it's not a big deal, why do these notifications need to be generated?
Yeah. Well, the sort of short answer is because the existing tariff we have calls for it.
Yeah,
but
the ISO also has a tariff compliance obligation, and there is a potential issue here, and we believe we need to send these notices out to ensure tariff compliance. That is the main reason we are doing this. We've identified an issue, and we don't want to risk being tariff non-compliant after we've identified a potential issue. So that's one of the reasons behind us sending out these notices. We do understand your concerns, but, we too have some compliance concerns as well that we've got to take into consideration.
But, okay, and that's fine. But isn't that the same for us in that we have an obligation to comply with the tariff? And in a sense, this is kind of alluding to that we are not complying with the tariff when, based on our interpretation, these credits are applied towards our RA requirement. The way our city council, they accept interruptibles as capacity towards your towards your obligation. So there's a disconnect there how we interpret it and how the ISO. So it's not helping us either. It's making us look as we're violating the tariff as well.
And that's not our intent. I don't think this creates, if somebody doesn't meet their RA obligation, I don't think they have violated their tariff, that violated our tariff. On the other hand, if there is a RA deficiency under the tariff and we don't send out a notice, there is a potential that we have violated our tariff, which is why we're sending out these notices. I think it's something, if you wanted to talk further, we'd be more than happy to talk to you about it offline. But again, I don't think the mere failure to show sufficient RA capacity is a tariff violation on your part. But I think, we'd be happy to talk further with you about that.
Yeah, that would actually be great, just so that we're on the same page.
Yeah, and just for those calling in, that was Anthony Ivankovich, Deputy General Counsel, who was speaking there from the ISO. But yeah, to reiterate what Anthony was saying, yeah, for our view, the initial notifications, that's not meant, again, that's not meant to say, in this case, City of Vernon violated our tariff. This is it's saying there's an issue to look into in the RA process. It's ongoing. We have the cure period. The point really is there's something to look into before the RA process, continues too far on down the line as you get to the RA delivery month. That is our view, and like Anthony said, we can sort of find ways of maybe, I don't know, spelling that out in more detail for entities like Vernon who are concerned about what the impact of those notifications may be. That's, I think, a fair thing we can figure out how to sort of get into in more detail as we go on.
Yeah, no, I would definitely love to talk to you guys, because right now, just thinking about it, maybe a notice after the credits are run, basically saying, hey, Vernon has met his RA requirement. However you guys want to do that. Again, for us, it's just the perception that Vernon is short. Because in our point of view, we are not short. We are following everything that our local regulatory agency has approved as capacity, and we're applying it to our capacity requirement. So anything further, we can, definitely talk offline, so I don't take up too much time.
Yeah, no, we understand your point, and we'll think of some way to get at it.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
We do have
any other questions?
Yep, we do. Caller, your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Amani from LEAP. Am I correct in understanding that slow DR, LSCs will receive credit for slow DR through this crediting system as opposed to through the process of day-ahead market exceptional dispatches?
Well, really, what I was trying to get at is that we're not carving those out as having some different treatment from any other credits. So, if we're talking about a demand response resource that's shown on supply plans, then I don't think any of this would apply. That at that point, it's a resource on a supply plan, and that's all same as any other RA capacity. But if it's a DR resource that's, not on a supply plan, but it is a resource that is still, registered as a resource on the system, then is that the scenario you're asking about, or the category you're asking about?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm how slow DR would be treated. So if it's on a supply plan, then it doesn't need to be credited.
Right, exactly. That's true.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
We do have other callers on the line. Caller, your line is unmuted.
I think you unmuted my line. I didn't have any further questions.
I think, am I unmuted? Simone Brandt from the CPC. I just want to agree with the caller from Vernon that it makes no sense that you won't upload the credits before sending out the notices. Before, in the past, you've always put them in zero before the month-end were due. We've already sent them. As far as we're concerned, this is real RA capacity. We're very transparent about, how we assess the capacity of our demand response programs, which we send through the credits. So it just seems like it's asking for a lot of confusion to wait until after the month ahead filing to make all the LSCs look like they're deficient when they turn out not to be.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we understand that point, and we have to just go back to our own tariff compliance issue that we're trying to manage at the same time as we're trying to sort of manage all these other topics.
We do have another question on the line. Caller, your line is unmuted.
Yeah, hi, I'm sorry. This is Efren again with the City of Vernon. The previous caller just kind of reminded me about something about the process itself. It really is creating more steps in our process as LSCs. In the past, we would just upload the credits directly through CIRA. So now we have to go through City to upload these and download market results twice. CIRA results twice, because the initial ones are going to show as deficient. We have to wait till, the credits are applied and then download the results again. So it's just duplicating our process as well. So I just want to make a note that, it's creating more work for the LSCs as well. And that's it. Thank you.
We have no further questions in the queue.
Okay. Well,
go ahead, David.
Yeah, all I was going to say is, I think if you have any additional questions that occur to you, you can sort of send them our way. We'll see how we can address them. But yeah, if there's, I guess we'll just give it another moment here if there's any other final questions coming in. But otherwise, I'll just hand it over to Isabella, and she can sort of wrap us up here.
Sure. So as a reminder, you can enter the question queue by pressing #2. So we'll just give it a minute to see if any more come in before we conclude. Are there any questions?
There are none in the queue.
Okay. Then that concludes today's call. Thank you all for joining us. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can email them to bpm_cm@kaiso.com. Thank you for participating, and have a great rest of your day.